So, how do you know Maddie?
I met your son on death row.
You never know who's at your front door. I get a lot of attention now, you know? Everybody knows who I am. So what do you want? Maddie sent you to get money for cigarettes?
Oh, no.
Well, that's a first. Why are you here?
They've set a date for Matt's execution.
Yeah. I got a call from the prison. Said if it goes down, do I got death insurance? What a laugh. I ain't even got food money.
Well, Matt goes before the pardon board this week, and his lawyer thinks it would be a good idea for you to be there.
Well, what does Maddie think?
He's worried, and he wants to protect you.
Well, it's a little late for that. Sit down. You know, that show, Inside Crime, they made a story about Maddie. And they told how I tried to help him and all. A regular mob barker or something. And now I'm famous. I was in a store yesterday, and I seen these two ladies eyeing me. And as I get closer to one of them, I hear him say, I just can't wait to hear that they've executed that monster, Matt Poncelet. That's the mother of that killer, they say. That's what they say.
That's cruel.
But they're right. I don't know. They think I wasn't there for him. They think I taught him to kill. What do you think, sister? Do you think I look like the mother of a killer? That's Maddie when he was 6. Sometimes I just want to pretend that I'm not his mom, so people will just leave me alone and not hate me. That's terrible, huh?
It's a lot you're asking of yourself. You remember the story of Peter and the cocks crowing?
He denied Jesus.
He was a good friend of Jesus, someone he trusted.
The rock of the church.
Yes, and he was scared. It's hard when everyone's screaming for blood.
Sister, my boys are having a real hard time in school. Kids picking on them, beating them up, and calling them names. Someone put a dead squirrel in my little Troy's locker. That poor boy, he came home crying. What did he ever do to anybody? I just keep trying to figure out what I've done wrong.
When I was 12, my daddy took me to a bar. And there was the shelf, and it had all these pretty glass bottles on it. And there was this one, it had a real pretty turkey on it. And my daddy told me, choose your liquor. And I saw that turkey, and that's the one I wanted. All them guys in there, they laughed their butts off. We got drunk as a couple of coots that night. But Daddy was a good man, there's no doubt. He was a sharecropper, and he worked hard. That's one thing I got from my daddy, was working hands.
How old were you when he died?
I was 14. Sister, why are you a nun?
I guess I was drawn to it? That's a hard question. It's like asking why you're a convict.
That's just bad luck is all.
Good luck then. I had a loving family, a lot of support, and I felt obliged to give some of it back.
Yeah, but don't you want to fall in love? Find a man? Maybe have sex? What? Don't want to talk about it right now?
I have close friends, men and women. I've never experienced sexual intimacy, but there are other ways to be close too. Like sharing your thoughts, your feelings, and your dreams. That's intimacy too.
We got intimacy right here, you and me, sister.
I went to see your mother, and she's willing to come to the pardon board if you'll have her.
You know, I'm liking being alone with you. You're looking real good to me right about now.
Look at you. Death is breathing down your neck, and here you are playing your little games. I am not here for your amusement, Matt, so show some respect.
Why should I respect you? Because you a nun and you wear a cross around your neck?
No, Matt, because I'm a person, and we deserve respect. Now, what's it gonna be? What's your answer for your mama?
Be tall, I can't be strong, but with you, it's not like that at all. There is a girl, it's a shame, behind these walls, just walk through it, and I remember all those crazy things you said, and you left them running through my head. You're always there.
Maddie's had a hard life,
Right now,
but he was a good boy.
all those crazy things we didn't think about it, just went with it. You're always there, you're everywhere, but right now I wish you were here.
Ladies and gentlemen, imagine this scenario. Man takes another man, puts him in a locked room, says to him, "You're gonna die. I ain't gonna tell you when. Could be tomorrow, could be in a week, but you're gonna die." Man stays in that room, terrified, his life on a wire. 6 years pass. Man comes into the room, says, "You're gonna die in a week. Plead your case." In any court in the land, this would be considered torture, cruel and unusual mental torture. This man that kept the other in the locked room would be considered a psychopath, a madman. This man is the state, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, why does the state call for the death penalty in the case of Matthew Poncelet? Well, let's take a look. In your files, you will find pictures from the murder scenes. Pictures that testify to the depravity and the degeneracy of this most brutal and subhuman act of violence. It has been 6 years since the murders of Hope Percy and Walter Delacroix, and justice is long past due.
The death penalty. It's nothing new. Been around for centuries. Used to nail people's hands and feet to wood, then lash their sides and bleed them. Throughout the centuries, we have buried people alive, lopped their heads off with an axe, a guillotine, burned them in public squares. Gruesome spectacles all.
Matthew Poncelet has had a lengthy, thorough court review. Not only a trial, but a retrial, as well as numerous appeals to the state and federal courts, and successor petitions filed by Mrs. Barber herself, quite obviously a most excellent attorney at the service of Mr. Poncelet. There has been no doubt in the court's mind at any time who did the murder.
Throughout the centuries, in the search for more humane ways to execute, we have hung people from the gallows, shot them in firing squads, suffocated them in the gas chambers, and cooked them alive in the electric chair. We've got something even more humane now. Lethal injection.
Matthew Poncelet was not a good boy. He was a heartless killer. These murders were calculated, cruel, and disgusting. This man shot Walter Delacroix 2 times in the back of the head. He then raped Hope Percy, stabbed her 17 times.
We strapped the guy
Before
up, and
shooting
Anna
this
sees
sweet
him with
girl
shot number
2
1.
times in the back of the
Then
head.
shot number 2, that implodes the lungs. And shot number 3, that stops the heart. We put him to death like an old horse. His face just goes to sleep, while inside, his organs are going through Armageddon. His muscles would seize up, twitch, contort, and pull. But shot number 1 relaxes all of those muscles. So we don't have to see any horror show. We don't have to taste the blood of ruthlessness on our lips, while this human being's organs writhe and twist and choke. We just sit there, nod our heads.
Since the
and
murders,
say justice
Matthew
has been
Poncelet
done.
has shown no remorse. When he was sentenced, he was sitting in the courtroom, smiling and chewing gum. He is an unfeeling, perverse misfit, and it is time, way past time, for Mr. Poncelet to pay the consequence for his horrifying deed. These families will never see their children graduate from college. They will never attend their wedding. There will be no grandchildren. They will never have another Christmas with them again. And all they ask you is simple justice for their unbearable loss.
What you have to ask yourself is what kind of justice has been done? I have shown how inadequately prepared Matt's lawyer was. I have shown procedural errors. When his lawyer wasn't sleeping, he raised one objection this entire trial. This is not justice. This is railroading.
You have a responsibility to these families, and you have a responsibility to society at large to show that horrible deeds have horrible consequences. It is only through deterrence that we can prevent this from ever happening again. So I ask you to take a breath, to steel your spine.
The state of Louisiana
and
does
proceed
not
to
have to
execution
kill
of
Matthew
Matthew
Poncelet
Poncelet
in order to protect its citizens. This man is locked up for the rest of his days at Angola prison. He's not getting out. We can't protect society without imitating the very violence we seek to eliminate. Let us have dignity. Please, let us not be complicit in the butchering of another human life.
Pardon board adjourned to discuss the case. But as I came to later understand, the pardon board is just a group of political appointees whose job it is to deflect guilt from the governor. It took a while, and in the moments we waited, I held great hope for grace and compassion to carry on the day. But knowing what I know now, I wouldn't be surprised if they played cards in the back room.
It is a finding of this board that clemency has been denied
What?
to Matthew Poncelet. Execution will continue as scheduled next week.
Don't lose hope, Matt. We've still got a judge in the Fifth Circuit Federal Court that can stop it. And beyond that, there's the U.S. Supreme Court and the governor. I'll get a meeting with her if it's the last thing I do. Don't lose hope.
Guess this is the end. They tell me I can choose some type of spiritual advisor. So how's about it, sister? You want to ride out in the sunset with me?
It means you're with him every day for several hours as his death nears. On the day of his execution, you were there all day. This kind of job is usually done by a priest or a chaplain.
It's a tough job, but if you're up to it, I say go for it.
Sister, I want to be realistic. We've got a 1 in 1,000 chance something might go our way. It's going to be a tough road.
I'm Susan Delacroix, Walter's mother.
Oh, Mrs. Delacroix, I'm very sorry about your son.
Sister, I'm Catholic. How can you sit by Matt Poncelet's side without having to come visit with me or the Percys to our side? How can you spend all your time worrying about Poncelet and not think that maybe we need your help too?
I'm very sorry, Mrs. Delacroix.
These are the Percys, Hope's parents.
I'm very sorry about your daughter.
Yeah, so are we. Excuse us.
Listen, sister, I'm sure you've seen a side of Matt Poncelet none of us have seen. And I'm sure he's pretty sympathetic to you. And I'm sure he's on his best behavior. But sister, this is a man who hung out in bars of thieves. This is an evil man that scum robbed me of my only son, and the Delacroix name dies with his father. And there will be no more Delacroix, sister.
Listen, Mrs. Delacroix, I want you to know that I care about you and your family and what happened. Listen, if you need any help, please call. Here's my number.
Me call you. Think about that, sister. Think about how self-righteous and arrogant that is. Excuse me.
These people have been run over by life. Matt gets in trouble with the law when he's 15.
Every kid gets in trouble when they're 15.
His daddy was never around.
Helen, most of your kids in the projects are raised by single parents, and they're not raping and killing people.
You're getting suckered.
Helen, why are you doing this?
Aren't there people in your neighborhood that need your help? Honest people?
But I'm still helping them.
But why are you visiting with the murderers?
They're the end of the line, people. For all the energy and resources you're putting into them, you could be keeping other kids from going to prison and to death row.
Some folks in the neighborhood read an article that mentioned your name as being associated with Poncelet.
My name was in the paper.
Helen, I'm simply curious. What has drawn you to this?
I don't know, Mama. I feel more caught than drawn. This man needs help, and for some reason, I'm the only one he trusts.
I know your heart is in the right place, Helen, but a full heart shouldn't follow an empty head. You know, when you were a little girl, you were always bringing home strays. If we had kept all those dogs and cats, we wouldn't have had any money to feed the kids in this house. Dear, your heart is large. Just please, take care that others don't take advantage of it. I would hate to see that.
Oh, Mrs. Delacroix! Mrs. Delacroix! Mrs. Delacroix!
What?
Listen, I'm sorry I didn't come to see you sooner. I've never done anything like this before.
Well, truth is, you're scared.
Yes.
Well, you ought to be scared. Sister, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Are you a communist?
No, Mrs. Delacroix, I'm not a communist.
I didn't think so. Some people around here were saying it with you defending a murderer and everything, but I didn't think so.
You must be going through hell.
This is Walter. When it first happened, I would go to his gravesite every morning. Wept a river. Old days, nights, weeks, for months. I just wish there was some way, some key into the past to change everything. Walter was one when he learned how to walk. But he was clumsy, and he was always bumping into things like the couch and the kitchen counter. That was the same kitchen counter him and Hope sat the week before they died. It's crazy. When you lose a child, every memory gets sealed into a place. Sealed, like a shrine.
Put in a request to be the spiritual advisor to Matthew Poncelet. Why?
He asked me, Father.
It's highly irregular.
Why?
Well, you'd be the first woman to do it. Look, this boy is to be executed in 5 days and is in dire need of redemption. This kind of situation requires an experienced hand.
He asked me, Father.
These are high stakes, sister. If you fail, this boy's soul is damned. Are you up to this?
Yes.
You're sure?
Yes, Father.
You can save this boy by getting him to receive the sacraments of the church before he dies. That is your job. Nothing more, nothing less.
I don't want to be buried here. They said they was going to call my mama, take care of the funeral arrangements and all. I need help because if she gets caught up in this, she's just going to get tore up.
Okay, I'll take care of it, Matt. Do you ever read the Bible?
Yes, ma'am, I pick it up from time to time, but I ain't much of a reader.
Do you read your Bible like W.C. Fields reads his Bible?
Who's W.C. Fields?
W.C. Fields. He used to play this drunken character in the movie. See, he's on his deathbed, and his friend comes to visit him, sees him reading the Bible, and his friend says, W.C., you don't believe in God. Why are you reading the Bible? And W.C. says, I'm looking for a loophole.
No, it's not a loophole I'm looking for. Rain. Rain. That's not a good sign. Look, they executed one black, Tobias, and tonight, Wayne Purcell. That's 2 blacks. And the governor's getting pushed for a white. And that white's me. But 2 niggers in the gurney before me, though, I sure hope they clean it before they even think about putting me in.
Was your daddy racist?
Now, what kind of question is that?
Hatred for people is taught. I was wondering who taught you.
I just don't like niggers is all.
Well, have you ever known any?
They all around.
All around?
They grew up around me.
Well, did you ever play with any black children?
No. But me and my cousin got jumped pretty bad once.
What happened?
We was down throwing rocks at them, and they got angry, and the next day they got a hold of our bikes and tore them up.
Well, can you blame them?
No. But slavery is long over, and they've been harping on what a bad deal they had.
Who? The kids that tore up your bike?
Yeah, I can't stand people that make themselves out to be victims.
Victims?
They all victims.
I don't know any victims in my neighborhood. I know some pretty cool, hardworking, decent people.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. And I know a lot of lazy, welfare-taking niggas sucking up tax dollars.
You sound like a politician.
What do you mean?
Have you ever been the object of prejudice?
No.
Well, what do you think people think of death row inmates?
Why don't you tell me?
They're all monsters. Disposable human waste, good for nothing, sucking up tax dollars.
Yeah, but I ain't sitting on my porch. I ain't whining. I'm innocent, and they trying to kill me. I like rebels, like Martin Luther King. Him and his people marched all the way to D.C. and kicked the white man's butt.
So you respect Martin Luther King?
He was a rebel, and he wasn't lazy.
Well, what about lazy whites?
Don't like him.
So Matt, it's lazy people you don't like.
Can we talk about something else?
You know, Hope had just graduated in early May. She was going to join the Air Force on June 15th. The day it happened, she almost got out of Slidell.
She was hoping to be stationed overseas. She always liked traveling, being with people of different cultures.
On June 15th, a recruiting officer was going to meet Hope at her apartment, and then the 2 of them were going to drive back down to Baton Rouge for induction. I had just taken her shopping the day before to get some things she'd be needing. Practical things, you know. New bras with plenty of support, dental floss, medicine for menstrual cramps.
At around 5 in the evening, Hope left for work at Corey's where she waitressed, and then she had a date with Walter.
As she was leaving, I noticed that the hem was coming out of her skirt. And she was in such a rush that I pinned it for her with one of those tiny safety pins. And then she was gone, out the door. You don't know when your child leaves through a door that you're never going to see her alive again. If I had known, I would have told her how much I loved her. Instead, the last things I ever said to her, the last she ever heard from me, was about the hem of a skirt.
The next morning, we waited for our daughter to walk through her doorway. The big day, our baby's leaving town.
I called the Delacroix. It was strange that she hadn't called. She would always telephone and tell us exactly where she was.
Our hearts sank when the Delacroix said Walter hadn't come home either. For a brief moment, it crossed our minds that maybe they ran off and got married or something.
But we knew Hope was much too sensible a girl to do something like that.
I went to the police, filed a missing persons report. 3 days passed, the sheriff's office finally formed a search party. I went with them.
They searched all day, looked for miles. Nothing. On June 20th, some kids walking around Frank's Cove found clothes and a wallet and a purse and turned it into the police. We got that information from our own resources, not from the police. They never called up. We called them.
They found their bodies on Friday, 6 days after their disappearance.
My daughter's body was nude and spread eagled. The coroner's report said her vagina was all tore up. At first, they couldn't find the clasp pin she was wearing because it had been embedded so deep with the stabbing. You know, she was so proud of that pin, she wore it all the time. It said class of 78, making a difference.
The police wouldn't let us come to the morgue to identify the body, said it'd be too traumatic.
But I couldn't let the body be buried without being absolutely, positively sure, without a doubt, that it was Hope. I mean, what with the decomposition and the clothes being nearby, they only thought it was her. I had to be sure. So I called my brother in Metrary, a dentist, and asked that he go to the funeral home and make an ID from the dental records.
Mary Beth's brother was pretty tore up when he came back from the funeral home. Before he stuck his hand into the bag filled with lime and fished out Hope's jaw, he said he'd always been against the death penalty. But boy, after that, he was for it.
I knew it was Hope. That's what my mind told me, but I just had to be sure. Emily. This is Sister Prejean.
Hello.
Hi, Emily. It's nice to meet you.
Okay.
Poncelet and I met face to face in the hallway during the trial. There was a police officer right next to me. I could have taken his gun and shot him. I could have killed him that day. I should have. I'd be a happier man today.
So, what made you change your mind?
Changed my mind.
What made you come around to our side?
Oh, no, I haven't. I told Matthew Poncelet I'd be his spiritual advisor. I'm going to be with him when he dies.
I thought you changed your mind. I thought that's why you were here.
No, I was just
How
coming
did
to...
you come here?
How can you go there? How can you sit with that scum?
I try to follow the example of Jesus, that every man is worth more than his worst act.
This is not a person. This is an animal. No, I take that back. Animals don't rape and kill their own kind. Matt Poncelet is God's mistake. You're going to hold his hand? You're going to comfort him when he dies? No one was there to comfort Hope when those scum put her face in the wet grass in those woods.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get him to take responsibility for what he did.
Does he admit to what he did? Is he sorry?
He says he didn't kill anyone.
Sister, if you're so sorry and if you care about us, you want to see justice done for a murdered child.
I'm sorry.
You don't know what it is to carry a child for 9 months and give birth to a child and get up with a sick child in the middle of the night. You say your prayers and you get a good night's sleep, don't you?
I'm sorry, really.
You're in waters over your head. I'm trying to be respectful because my parents always taught me to respect the religious, but I think you need to leave this house.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry I've only added to your pain.
You brought the devil into this house. Sister, you better go.
I come from a good family. My family's not to blame for nothing. I have 2 families, both I love and would die for.
Your other family is?
Of men in jail. My white family, the Aryan Brotherhood.
You are a white supremacist? A follower of Hitler?
Hitler was a leader, and he got things done, man. He got things done. Now, maybe he went a little overboard with some of his killing, but he was on the right track about Aryans being the proper race and all.
The right track, the murder of 6 million Jews.
That hasn't been proven yet.
Man, this guy is crazy. What am I getting